There's also some attention being paid elsewhere. There are those in the legislature who still believe America's response to the novel coronavirus pandemic leaned a little toward the extreme. Well, from one extreme to the other. This week, a bill to limit the authority of boards of health when it comes to what preventative measures they can impose in a pandemic got set aside in the Senate, while a bill to keep any government entity from mandating the use of masks to stop the spread of an infectious disease, that one advanced to a full Senate debate after already passing through the House. Then there's the Fauci Resolution, one that says the federal pardon of Dr. Anthony Fauci would not prevent him from being prosecuted in Idaho. But that's already a given since federal pardons only apply to federal crimes and not state crimes. So House Concurrent Resolution 5 is about putting what we already know on paper, even though it is already on paper. But it's also about some lawmakers not being able to move on from the pandemic.
To see that there is still in Idaho upset, frustration, sometimes anger at the way the COVID-19 epidemic was handled, particularly on the part of the federal government. And when you see the Idaho legislature taking up these matters years later, that's why.
Even if it isn't necessary. But as Senator James Ruchti pointed out, we were in the middle of a global pandemic at the time, something we haven't faced in a century, and we were figuring it out as we went along. Well, unfortunately, Senator Ruchti said too many people created this alternative reality of what we went through at the time and took certain local restrictions as a personal affront instead of, well, sacrifices like one would during wartime.
My concern is that instead of accepting some of these truths and calming fears, we inflame them, and we're still doing that here. To suggest that Dr. Fauci, and this does suggest Dr. Fauci, violated laws. Doesn't say it directly, but that's clearly the intent by using Dr. Fauci's name in a resolution that also talks about charging him with crimes.
Even though there has been no evidence put forth of a crime committed by Dr. Fauci or any prosecutor in Idaho considering charging him with one. But this pardon of Fauci looks really bad, said Senator Ben Taves. But there was no mention of the perception of the full pardons granted to those who violently attacked Capitol police officers on January 6th. Fauci resolution, by the way, which is nothing more than a strongly worded letter, well, that now heads to the full Senate.